I've been meaning to watch this for a little while. This was made by Big Moran himself.
Listen, some of us here at SkillCap have
Okay, so this video is 26 minutes long. It's not short. All right. But it is the most iconic moments in WoW PvP history. I've been told I need to watch this, so we're going to. And that begins right now. We're going to get a bit of a history lesson, ladies and gentlemen. Let me turn it up for you. Make sure it's good. Lights, camera, action. And begin.
Listen, some of us here at SkillCap have PvP'd for literally 20 years. And trust me when I say that along the way, we've seen some pretty crazy shit. From moments that make you want to cry tears of joy to the dark events that potentially landed someone in jail.
What?
Today we're going to be taking a look
Show
at
Hydra?
all of it. The good, the bad, even the ugly, with the 9 most iconic moments in PvP history.
The 9 most iconic moments in PvP history. Oh my god.
Well, at least in our opinion. And let me just say that this includes the secret backstories, the unknown context, everything that many players really don't even know about. And we're going to start with the most iconic 1v2 of literally all time, when Zaryu defeated Jamili and Mr. Pandaria.
Dude, this is a moment that haunts Jamili's nightmare, dude. Zaryu 1v2ing him and ABN. It's so funny.
We're totally joking, because any real fan of WoW PvP knows that the
What? I thought that was a good moment.
greatest 1v2 ever involved a legendary Korean mage. Now, while today the main competition is between NA and EU, things weren't always like this. And during the peak popularity
So I want to pause for 1 second. That's one thing I miss a lot. I kind of wish, it's unlikely to happen, but dude, with the return of AWC to Blizzcon, I really hope that they try to bring like some Chinese teams or something like that. I don't know. We need Zheng Bahai to just like make a roster, you know? Because I feel like that was, I don't know, maybe the scene's not big enough, but that was one of my favorite things ever. Is like, it felt like EU and NA was much more isolated from each other. And when you went to BlizzCon, you actually saw the different styles of NA and EU and you know, Asia clashing, which was really fun.
WoW esports, teams from Korean servers were hailed as some of the game's absolute best talent. Orange Marmalade was a Korean mage, most known for playing a highly technical version of RMP, eventually going on to face off against some other RMP legends, including both Reckful and Hydra in the MLG circuit, and even competing at BlizzCon for 2 years in a row. Being widely considered one of PvP's most dominant players at the time, Orange Marmalade would also shape one of WoW's most iconic moments in the grand finals of the Intel Extreme.
Played against any Asian teams? Of course, yeah. We had some RMP mirrors against this team. We beat them 4-0 at one point. We were kind of back and forth with them, but we had a series. It was actually before the down goes Venruki moment. We 4-0'd them in RMP mirrors in a best of 7. And then it's actually one of the reasons we played that comp. Actually, I can, you know what? I'm gonna pause, and if the down goes Venruki moment comes up, I'll tell the story. But let's keep going.
Masters in 2009, being 1 game away from elimination. He would find himself in an RMP mirror as an arcane mage, a relatively niche and quirky spec with incredible damage potential, due in part to the talents like Incanter's Absorption,
it was really
which allowed
OP.
absorbed spell damage to be converted into spell power.
Arcane was actually really, really, really strong. And in this tournament, you'll notice that there's 2 Korean RMPs in the final. They actually knew about a bug. So WoW has some bugs, guys. I don't know if you know that. And when teams hold bugs to themselves, they can get big advantages. This has just been happening since the dawn of time. And the Korean team were using a bug, I think it was the Glyph of Backstab, that was bugged to not just increase backstab damage, but it increased all of your damage by like 15% or something like that. So the Korean rogues in this tournament were literally running around doing 15% more damage than anyone else. It's hilarious.
For the mage themselves. So during Game 4, Orange Marmalade's rogue would fall, but shortly after, there would be a counter kill against the opposing rogue from SK Gaming, setting up a janky 2v2 where both priests being nearly completely Eventually, Orange Marmalade's healer would die, leaving him in a 1v2 situation, with the casters prematurely announcing victory for SK Gaming.
So I'm going to be honest. This was actually such a heartbreaking moment for the other team because I was live, I was in the audience, and I watched this happen. And I know I'm pausing a lot. I'm going to keep pausing a lot. So I'm going to give you guys context to these stories because I'm an old man and I know them. So it was so sad because when they got this kill and it was 1 versus 2, these guys were barely paying attention. Now, I'm not trying to take away from his epic 1v2, but these guys were not playing. They were barely playing at all. Their coach came up behind them and they were jumping and one hand on the keyboard. They were pretty much just like standing up, celebrating. And then they got 1-degged. And I've never seen anyone go from being so happy to so sad so fast.
It's quite unfair, and he is going to drop, and SK Gaming are going to take this. They're going to take victory. They're going to claim the 30,000. It's only Orange Marmalade to fight to the end.
But then, in the blink of an eye, the audience would be absolutely stunned as everyone was about to witness the most insane comeback of all time. After popping a mana gem, Orange Marm would spell steal Power Word Shield while fishing for missiles procs. He would then absorb damage with Mage Shield and Fire Ward, giving him spell power thanks to Enchanter's Absorption.
Yeah.
Then, after sending out a barrage, he would finally get his missiles proc, and after locking the enemy mage on Arcane, he would send all of his damage, blasting their entire health bar before their healer could even react, setting up a 1v1 against the Priest. The duel in Ruins of Lordaeron would last over 10 whole minutes, with Orange Marmalade's team eventually being declared the winner. His comeback would send the series into match point, where HON would eventually come out on top, cementing Orange Marmalade as one of the greatest players of all time. But not every moment on this list is heroic, and some of the most memorable moments in PvP history include some bad luck. Down goes Venruki is a phrase most arena players are pretty familiar with. But before it became an iconic PvP meme and even an emote in the chat, we have to understand how that moment even happened in the first place. Early WoW tournaments were incredibly janky for various reasons. Despite being one of the most popular esports in the whole world around the turn of the decade, Blizzard did very little to support PvP at the time. This included tournament servers themselves.
PTSD to loading? No, I'm just trying to
patch of the expansion, but with vendors only offering the first season's gear.
So this is one of the dumbest things ever. Like, Blizzard, I love you, but like, they just wouldn't update the tournament realms. So we were playing in Season 8 patch in Season 5 gear, and they just wouldn't update it. So like on live, we could actually beat this team. It was possible. But in Season 5 gear, you just didn't have enough. You did, like in Season 5 gear as a mage, you basically had to choose like, do you want to play offensive and be a glass cannon with your gearing? Or do you want to be a tank and do 0 damage? That's kind of what you had to do. In Season 8, you could kind of have the best of both worlds, and it was a lot more of a balance, which was nice. But the entire tournament, you just had to play in shit gear, and they just wouldn't update it. Because I guess it was too hard. And we were just playing this matchup, which we knew we were going to lose. I'll explain more.
MLG Orlando would take place in Season 7 of Wrath of the Lich King. But players were forced to use Season 5 gear, which meant a strict downgrade on all stats, most importantly, resilience. One of the most dominant compositions during that time was Beast Cleave, with a BM Hunter and Enhancement Shaman being supported by a Holy Paladin.
And I'm pretty sure that is one of the reasons why Beast Cleave was so good, is because pets were broken in the early seasons. And as the game progressed, pets became less effective because they didn't scale with gear as much or something like that. Like the pets were just super duper dumb in the early seasons, so the way gearing worked.
Was specifically designed to win games and win games fast, having one of the deadliest openers thanks to the combination of Bestial Wrath, Spirit Wolves, and Bloodlust. Now, while Beast Cleave did do well on the retail ladder, it was particularly deadly in tournaments since players had significantly less stamina and resilience to survive the onslaught of damage. Venruki and Complexity Red unfortunately found themselves face to face with the most dominant Beast Cleaves at the time.
So I'm going to give a little bit more context to this. So I told you guys we beat Han and RMP mirrors right before this, 4-0. You can go watch it. They were great games. We owned. And Reckful, love him. He didn't want to play. So we knew we could not win this matchup. It was impossible for us to win. We literally went into the series to lose because Reckful, my good friend, didn't want to play. He was happy that we just 4-0'd and he didn't want to lose playing Rogue, even though we needed him to play because he had a happy feeling, is what he said. So we had to just play and lose.
In Game 7, we saw one of the quickest deaths in tournament history.
Wow, and down goes Venruki.
That's a true story, by the way.
That'll do it. And now
Like,
Venruki's winner. Where exactly that?
Against this team, we actually were 0-20 as a Mage Lock Druid with this gearing. We could not win.
That block he is, but it didn't really matter.
And this would be a pretty good time to mention that we have less like this rating, another phrase you might have heard along the way, which has a pretty complicated backstory that we're going to talk about here. These were the words shouted by Reckful at the very end of Game 3 between his team of Complexity against Special Tactics,
Vidros, thanks
which is
for
a
the sub,
roster
man.
that included another rogue named Woundman. Up to this point, these two players had a rather, let's just say, turbulent history, competing against each other in tournaments for years and battling for rank 1 on the arena ladder. Each player possessed a technical mastery over the rogue class, but with their own highly distinct playstyle. Woundman was considered the more aggressive, pressure-oriented player, while Reckful prided
what up,
himself on a
Hydra?
slower, more methodical gameplay. A division that would eventually carry on years later between Peekaboo and Waz.
There it
But
is.
that's just a story for another time. Throughout the years, tension would build between Woundman and Reckful as both players would fight for recognition.
I watched this duel series. I was at Reckful's house, and I was behind him watching them do this like best of 7 or best of 8. It was so fun.
As the best rogue in the world. And over the years, their rivalry would even get a little bit heated. Kind of a light word for it, with each player trash-talking each other on stream.
Because he's the most overrated player in the history of World of Warcraft, that's why.
At the 2011 North American Regionals, Reckful and Complexity were playing Roguelock Shaman and would first face off against Woundman and Special Tactics playing DK Rogue in the upper bracket. Woundman's team played highly defensive, attempting to stall out the game and win purely on damage.
What's up, Dilly? How
this
are you, man?
resulted in 2 out of the 3 games ending in a 20-minute draw, including a win from Woundman in round 2 to give Special Tactics the series lead. And as you can imagine, having not one, but 2 20-minute timeouts in a tournament must have been incredibly frustrating, which meant tensions were building even more when both teams met once again in the lower bracket. The first game in the elimination round would result in yet another timeout, with frustration continuing to rise. Then, on Game 2, Reckful would eventually pin down Dizzyit below the bridge on Blade's Edge Arena, kicking his Healing Surge and then smoke bombing his Spirit Link, and the rest is history.
Calling, please kill him. Goes into Ghost Wolf, into a stun, out of it. There's that late trinket, but still goes down in the middle of the ring.
Unfortunately, the
Dude, it's so funny because, like, back in the MLG ESL days, you would actually sit across from each other and you would yell things like that. People, I feel like honestly, I feel like Azale was like one of the people who started that, like getting really loud and trying to have like a psychological edge, like being toxic to your opponents, you know? He said, "You suck" is pretty PG to compared to what people actually said. Yeah. It's just funny, man. Razale's reformed. Well, he's also not 18 years old anymore, you know what I mean?
odds from the 2011
A long
North
time
American
ago, bro.
regionals are, let's just say, completely gone from existence. They don't exist. And years later, Reckful would explain how this tournament was enough to end his competitive career. So Cataclysm also included two of the most infamous events in PvP history, including when Hydra had his account hacked days before the end of Season 11, which is a story with a whole lot of layers of context.
I don't know this.
Leading up to the expansion, Hydra had one of the longest streaks of consecutive Rank 1 titles, having earned the Feat of Strength every season from TBC to Wrath of the Lich King. Crazy. Now, unfortunately, he would go on to miss the title in Season 9 as Disc Priest were one of the worst healers at the time. His final Rank 1 push that season was halted after a double DK team win traded at 5 a.m. with only days before the ladder shut down. After getting
They win
griefed
traded
in
at
Season
5
9,
a.m.
he would then go on to get Ruthless Gladiator, entering into the Cataclysmic season with a minor dent in his Rank 1 streak. He would then go on to make an impressive climb, though, to the top of the ladder, where he was able to sit comfortably for many, many months. That was until an infamous player named Xandin took matters into his own hands. Now, until this point, every PvP season was riddled with controversy, including the early days of win trading in TVC to GCD hacking and Wrath of the Lich King, with cheating living on even...
Wait, Talbodar wrote this?
To this day.
This is World of Ming Talbodar post?
Despite a dark history of grime within
I didn't even know
PvP
Talbodar
history,
wrote for World of
what
Ming.
happened to Hydra was unprecedented. A few days before the end of the season, someone was able to log into Hydra's account, disbanding his rank 1 3v3 team, which would disqualify everyone on the roster, including Hydra, Mir, and Raikou from achieving the rank 1 title they had been holding for months. Hydra went on to document this event, and a post was made on Arena Junkies, which quickly became one of the most popular threads of all time, getting over 300,000 views in just a few days. Now, it was later discovered that Xandin was the one behind the hacking. He was able to trick Blizzard into giving him access to Hydra's account by forging an ID to give to customer support. Eventually, Hydra would get access to his account, and his team was restored, adding yet another rank 1 title to his impressive streak.
This is for the record, this video is awesome so far.
Gave me my account back, but just not WoW. My WoW account is still locked.
Hydra wasn't the only player to have account problems during Cataclysm, though, as Swifty would have some of his own earlier in the expansion. On July 18th, 2011, a video titled...
How did he get banned? Like, I'm trying to remember. He got banned because he, like, organized an event that crashed the WoW servers or something like that, I think. Is that right?
Swifty Banned was uploaded to his channel, quickly becoming one of the most viewed WoW videos of all time. This was during a time when Warcraft was near the top of the gaming world, coming off the most popular expansion of all time and starting its early domination of a brand new website called Twitch.tv.
Was he trying to crash the servers, though? I guess we'll find out.
So during one of his early live streams, Swifty gathered a massive crowd on his home server of Darkspear, eventually crashing the server. Suspecting malicious behavior, Blizzard banned his account almost instantly. News of Swifty's ban echoed throughout the entire community, with other YouTubers showing their support for one of WoW's original legends.
You will not get away with this, Blizzard!
Dude.
Eventually, Blizzard would reverse this decision, and Swifty would get his account back for good. Now, depending on who you ask, our next moment was either a complete fluke or an honest win, with the grand finals of BlizzCon 2010. This would be the final event during the Wrath of the Lich King.
I hated this. This is the worst thing that ever happened to me, dude. If it's about me, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Expansion with Cataclysm right on the horizon. The metagame at the end of Wrath would be described in one single word: Wizards. With Lock Shaman Druid arguably being the best spell cleave in the game. A year earlier, at BlizzCon 2009, the tone was, let's just say, completely different, with brawly melee cleaves completely dominating, culminating with Vive, Valrath, and Zilia taking the home trophy.
We love
as
this bit, right? It's
TSG.
beautiful, right?
In 2010, Venruki, Snuts, and Soda found themselves in the grand finals, representing the best North America had to offer. To their left was Against All Authority from EU, with Fabio, HRK, and Enigms playing LSD, arguably the strongest comp possible at the time. It was apparent in Game 1 that the crowd was in for a very, very long series, with both teams playing incredibly cautiously for over 10 minutes. Eventually...
So I'll add more context to this. We were coming from the lower bracket, which meant in order to win, we had to win 2 series against them. That's the way it worked. It's different than today. We were in the lower bracket, so coming from the lower bracket, meaning to win this finals, we had to beat them 2 series in a row. Okay? So we actually did beat them the first series, but before we kind of figured out, our main composition was actually Mage Lock Druid. But with the way they were playing, it was impossible to win as Mage Lock Druid because we had not enough offense. They were playing so damp and so slow and just taking 0 risks. And just abusing the fact that Ellie Shamans did more damage than mages. So if they survive, they automatically win every game. Because the way it worked is, if the game went 20 minutes, they would look at damage and they would replay the match, but whoever did more damage in game 1 would just win game 2 if it timed out again. So we're just losing. We just can't win over and over and over and over and over, and they're just getting points for free, never actually killing us. Just because the scoreboard says they won. And then we switched to Priest, and we actually started picking up wins. It wasn't easy, but yeah.
Ending with North America's Complexity landing a late-game kill. But despite their caution, we were about to see one of the most heroic plays of all time, performed by none other than Soda himself. Against All Authority would strike back in another brutally long Game 2, but following this, Complexity would have a miraculous win on Ring of Valor, which was easily their worst map in the matchup.
Yeah.
This would put them in a key advantage going into match point, where they would continue to face off against the LSD on Ruins of Lordaeron.
Dude, this was even worse, okay? So he's going to explain it, but... So we're playing Ruins of Lordaeron, okay? And going into this game, it's their advantage. So if the game times out again, it's going to be 2-2, right? But what ends up happening is we actually win this round. He's going to explain it. He's going to show it. But you'll see. The game goes on forever. And Soda goes completely out of mana. He's got nothing left. And in like a heroic play where it's like literally we need to win the game or he's dead for sure, he goes for an offensive penance and we actually kill and win, which is so sick. But the admins forgot to tell us that it was even more scuffed than that. The admins had to tell us that it was going to be close to 20 minutes. So this is the way it should work and worked most games. The admins would be like, okay, you got 5 minutes left. Okay, you got 2 minutes left. Okay, you got 1 minute left. Okay, you're going to be done in 10 seconds. Stop playing in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 kind of thing, right? They just were basically behind us telling us this. And the admins didn't say anything. They didn't tell either of us that the game was going to end or was at 20 minutes. And I think we ended up getting the kill at like 20 minutes and 1 second or like 3 seconds or something like that, you know? So instead of winning the tournament 3-1 with this heroic play, they actually announced us as winners. It was even worse than this. So this is it's like a 4-hour series where they announced that we won. We killed them in a completely fair game. They announced that they won. They took our computers off the stage. And then the team complained, which, I mean, whatever. I don't blame them. It's not their fault. They complained that it was over the time limit, which it technically was by like a few seconds. But they were like, oh, yeah, we weren't even trying. We took our hands off the keyboard, which is a complete lie. And then, so instead of winning, they had to reset up all our computers. And now, instead of winning 3-1, it was 2-2. And then we ended up getting our worst map and just losing. It was so dumb.
Game 4 would last over 20 minutes, eventually concluding with a complete timeout, with all players being prompted by admins to stop the fight. Instead of each team earning a point for the tie, the match would simply be replayed, and both teams would have to go back to battle it out on Ruins. Just like the previous game, the replay would last incredibly long, with both teams doing a ridiculous amount of damage. But after 10 minutes, one thing became clear. Mana would start to become an issue for both healers. With this in mind, we were about to see a heroic play from Soda, possibly the single greatest moment from any healer in tournament history. Late into the game, he would find himself dead with his entire team rotting to the pressure of the Affliction Warlock and Elemental Shaman. It was at this moment his team went for a crazy cross-CC setup with a deep freeze on the Warlock, Psychic Scream on the Shaman, and a blanket CS on the Druid. Soda, with just a sliver of mana, would PI himself and then cast a Holy Fire and Offensive Penance.
Look at his health. Look at his health that he Offensive Penances with. Like, such a fucking sick play, man. And we actually kill him. It was so sick.
To Fabio, scoring the kill and dropping down to
It was the most heroic moment ever. Look at him.
100 HP in the process. Then, with a single Power Word Shield and Prayer of Mending, he would narrowly survive. It seemed like NA had come out on top yet again, or so everyone thought. HRK and Enigms would stay in the game, stalling out the rest of the match for as long as they possibly could. And after almost 4 minutes, Complexity would score the second kill. immediately celebrating their win. Despite this, the European Resto Druid stayed in the game, as his team called over tournament admins, prompting a 10-minute break. As it turned out, the first kill on Fabio happened 17 seconds after the 20-minute timeout. Instead of admins pausing the game, they had allowed it to play out. Because this was the second tie in a row, the winner would be determined by damage based on the previous round.
It was really bad.
But because the European team was playing with an Affliction Warlock, they had a major advantage in the damage rule, and the admins determined that LSD had won on the scoreboard.
We take the damage from the previous match, and that means that AAA gains that point.
This would then cause the series to go into a Game 5 on Ring of Valor, which was easily the worst map for the MLP, leaving Soda no chance to drink in a matchup that was mana intense.
It was so heartbreaking.
With the luck of the...
Said people cry about dampening. Dude, dampening, I'm not going to lie, I feel like I'm partly responsible for dampening existing. This BlizzCon series is part of the reason why dampening exists, I swear. And I think it might actually be a big part.
The draw from some map orange...
This series literally took 5 hours.
The Europeans would go on to win BlizzCon 2010 in one of the most controversial tournament endings of all time, igniting tensions between NA and EU for years to come. The following year, we would see yet another upset for North America, this time coming from an underdog. BlizzCon 2011 would be the only time we would see Cataclysm PvP played out on the main stage.
I actually think 2011 BlizzCon is one of my favorite BlizzCons. And the Korean team winning with some random composition, it was so
happening
sick.
Over a year after the game's official release. And the tournament featured some pretty recognizable names, including Cdew, Azael, and Talbadar representing Team EG. This time, Snuts would team up with Pooks and Toes for skill cap, playing a familiar MLP and MLS. Now, unlike previous years, this event would also include 2 more teams to add to the typical 8, with WoW esports expanding into China. But as it would turn out, the real dark horse of the tournament would be from Korea, with a team named OMG,
so good,
playing PHDK, a comp that hadn't seen much tournament play since 2009. Eventually, they would find themselves in the semifinals in the match point against Fabio's Shadowcleave, with nobody expecting the Koreans to make it this far. Fabio's map luck from the previous year would absolutely backfire, with Ring of Valor proving to be too much for the Warlock champion against the underdog PhD.
Dude, everyone was so mad losing to them because nobody thought they could win. The way they played Sewers was a masterclass, I swear, with the Paladin down below, just like spam dispelling or whatever. Dude, this is before, I swear this is also before people really understood how freaking they didn't understand how broken abusing monkeys was. So they, I don't want to say they bug abused, but they kind of did. They were very good, but they also were doing something no one else did. Like most teams thought this comp sucked. Like you were never going to lose to it. But what they did, if you don't know, is you could actually get these little monkey pets. You could store 5 monkey pets, okay? Maybe it was 6, 5, I think. And it had a cooldown called Bad Manner, which it threw like poop or something at you, threw dirt at you, and it stunned you. So it had a ranged stun. And then it also had Roar of Sacrifice, so you couldn't be crit, which is obviously really strong. Can't be crit, and you have a ranged stun. But what this hunter did is he abandoned monkeys. So after he would use the cooldowns, he would abandon the pet, and it allowed him to just instantly resummon the second monkey. And then those cooldowns would be off. It would reset the cooldowns. So in a game, he could do back-to-back like 5 stuns and 5 Roar of Sacrifices with his pet, making them super impossible to kill, which is freaking insane.
Okay, this would eventually set up a grand finals with OMG having yet another mountain to climb, facing off against Snuts and Skill Capped. It soon became apparent...
It might have been a disorient, yeah. But the thing that was really crazy was the sacrifice. You just, as a mage, never being able to crit is crazy.
That the momentum the Koreans had built could not be stopped. And to everyone's surprise, they managed to win not only the first game of the series, but would again strike blood in Game 2, putting Skill Cap down 0-2, facing elimination. Before that would happen, however, we were about to see an appearance from a PvP legend. Despite having quit the game as a result of regionals that year, Reckful called Snuts down from the stage while the commentators discussed the sudden pep talk. What many people don't know about this particular moment is that Reckful was actually giving Snuts advice, telling him to use Bane of Doom instead of Bane of Agony. As it turns out, Bane of Doom is technically more DPS, especially with the enemy team lacking a Curse Dispel. That's why for the remainder of the series, you don't even see Agony on OMG's frames. The tournament UI was not even set up to show the duration of Bane of Doom. And with renewed energy,
I don't think it mattered at all, to be honest. I don't think
from Reckful, skill capped would bounce back to tie the series at 2-2.
I don't know. I don't know if that mattered.
The final game would be played on Dalaran sewers and would feature some of the most creative positioning of all time, with OMG's Holy Paladin hopping up and down on the ground level to avoid CC. Eventually, OMG would score the final blow against Pooks 8 minutes into the fight, with the underdogs coming out on top. This would be the only time in WoW's history where we would see a BlizzCon champion from a region other than NA or EU.
It was so sick, actually, I swear.
So as a prelude to our next two events, which happened in 2017 and 2018 respectively, we need to understand the shift in power between NA and EU. While the global champion shifted regions between 2008 and 2013, Europe started to win consecutively starting in 2014. During that year, we would see an EU versus EU Grand Finals, which would repeat once again in 2015.
Oh my god, EU is too good.
Composed of Swapsy, Botar, Fabio, and Joe Fernandez defeating Skill Capped. In 2016, 3 members of this and Joe Fernandez.
Dude, I kind of like these frames. Am I crazy? I like the red and blue. It makes it really easy to. I kind of like this. Am I
with SK Gaming, composed.
But I need to see it.
Of Swapsy.
Wow, I kind of like those. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud.
Botar, Fabio, and Joe Fernandez defeating Skill Capped. In 2016, 3 members of this roster would return to the Grand Finals under the banner of Splice Gaming, defeating Cdew and Method for their second consecutive BlizzCon.
Yeah, I really like these frames. I'm gonna screenshot this. Sorry, but I need to do a little bit of feedback.
Of Swapsy, Botar, Fabio, and Joe Fernandez defeating Skill Capped. In 2016, 3 members of this roster would return to the Grand Finals under the banner of Splice Gaming, defeating Cdew and Method for their second consecutive BlizzCon win. This would help set the stage for the next legendary moment in PvP history, with Panda Global facing off against Method Triforce in 2017. This would be the second BlizzCon played during the Legion expansion, with the total number of teams being expanded to 12, now including South America and the Oceanic region. Panda Global was a mix of some of North America's best talent, both past.
Dude, this is one of my favorite series too. Rosita Jones is a hero here.
And present, including the energetic duo of Jellybeans and Rubcub and the veteran expertise of Rosita Jones, a player who had already competed in the MLG circuit nearly a decade prior. They would find themselves on WoW's biggest stage against a team eyeing their 3rd consecutive championship. Method Triforce were known for their careful tournament planning, having won the previous year by preparing a list of over 20 comps to deal with every possible threat they might face in the bracket. Despite that careful work, no amount of planning could have prepared them for the onslaught that they were about to experience. Panda Global locked in an extremely unconventional comp. DH, Marks Hunter, Resto Shaman.
Bro, it's dude, the DH Hunter, man, that just won again. It's
aiming to topple the stability of Method's Thundercleave. As the gates opened and both teams would clash in the middle, the audience was anticipating yet another win for EU. But to the surprise of every single person watching, Panda Global made quick work of the European Titans, taking them down in just over a minute.
Love.
Rubcub got up from his seat unfazed by Europe's supposed best, igniting a roar within the crowd. Method would strike back in Game 2 on Tolviron Arena, attempting to prove to the crowd and to themselves that they still had the composure to win. But what would happen in Game 3 would be nothing short of complete domination.
Let's go.
And in the halls of the Anaheim Convention Center, this is crazy, the crowd would bear witness to the biggest beatdown in tournament history.
Let's see it.
All right, the gates are open. Let's see how they handle this opener. Rosita Jones is just going to get right in there immediately onto Fabs with a very late kick onto that Cyclone, stopping it. As Rosita Jones again, as I don't believe he's playing the demonic build. We'll have to see. No, looks like he's all in. He's going to be using that Chaos Blades with the Nemesis.
Trap.
This is everything right now. As Fabs is going to get down to half with a great trap onto Botar right now. They need that follow-up CC if they can. Fabs is taking lots of damage, and there it is! You're kidding!
With a legendary capstun from Rubcub, Panda Global would make Method bleed, putting the back-to-back champs on match point. With Fabio back on his main, Panda Global was one win away from making it to the grand finals. But once again, the aggressive playstyle of North America was too much for the Europeans to handle. The DH Hunter gave Fabio zero breathing room, chasing him down the entire game with unrelenting pressure on the game's biggest stage. After porting out of desperation, Rosita Jones would strike the final killing blow, sending the underdog.
You said Blizzcon was different when the competitors were all there live. It was so much better. Oh, yeah. That's why I'm excited, guys. It's coming back next year. You know that, right?
Dogs from North America to the BlizzCon finals. At number 9, we have Cdew's BlizzCon win. Like other moments on the list, Cdew's BlizzCon victory in 2018 requires a little bit more context to fully appreciate. And it didn't come without controversy, as we're going to soon find out.
A little controversy,
BlizzCon 2018 was his 5th shot at the title, having appearances in the Arena World Championship dating back nearly a decade at that point, each and every time drawing closer and closer and closer to victory. His first BlizzCon appearance at 2011 ended with a 5th place finish, as his shadow play with Talbadar and Azael narrowly missed the top
I'll link the video when we're done with it, guys.
The following year, he would finish 4th, this time making the final bracket, which would ultimately result in an early elimination by the dark horse of the tournament, an underdog Korean team aptly named Incredible Miracle. Cdew's third chance would then come in 2014 as the fan favorite Three Amigos. This tournament would peak with one of the most intense semifinals of all time, with Cdew, Snuts, and Venruki narrowly losing a best-of-5 series to the eventual champions. In 2016, Cdew would place 2nd in easily the closest grand finals of all time. Game 7 would be played on a fitting final resting place. And
Dude,
Botar
this was so
would narrowly escape death
brutal.
after one of the most iconic games.
This was actually one of the coolest games ever played, too. Like, this finals was insane, the fact that Botar lived here.
Ways in tournament history. Cdew would then fall moments later, as the 3 core members of Splice Gaming would go on to win their 2nd consecutive championship. And finally, after a disappointing finish at Regionals in 2017, Cdew would bounce back a year later, finding himself on WoW's biggest stage one more time. This was a pivotal year for Cdew and Mez, who were both becoming fathers in their personal lives at the time, with questions being raised about their longevity as players. BlizzCon 2018 would also feature the very first NA versus NA Grand Finals, as Peekaboo and the Gosu crew made quick work of Waz and Method Black in the semifinals. The stage was then set for Cdew and Method Orange to fight the move in the best-of-7 series in the first major tournament of Battle for Azeroth.
Such a slaughter.
As things quickly turned out to be incredibly one-sided. BFA introduced, quote, Azerite traits, which were basically the embellishments at the time. And Druids had access to Lively Spirit, which is a trait that would give a stacking buff to the target of their Innervate, increasing spell power for every spell they cast while the buff was active. Using a combination of the Troll Racial and a gear set with maximum haste, Cdew would quickly stack this buff on Sam-I-Am before the gates even opened.
I have a full haste set on. This is what I do. I was troll for this exact reason. Pop on, use haste trinket.
Which would then snowball into a nasty opener, with a combination of Lively Spirit and Incarnation creating unhealable damage in the first 20 seconds of each game. Now, this definitely wasn't the first time a team used clever game mechanics to get an advantage in a tournament. But nonetheless, some people within the community called into the legitimacy of the win, especially after Lively Spirit would be hotfixed shortly after Blizzcon.
Hotfixed it right after the tournament, dude.
Ended. In any case, 2018 helped cement Cdew as one of the greatest PvPers of all time. And later this November, we're going to see him fight once more to become an AWC champion.
That's why I'm true.
Now, as always, I just want to stress that this list of moments is just my opinion. It's our opinion at SkillCapped. And there are plenty of other iconic events in PvP history that we might have missed. Go figure, which is why we want you to tell us in the comments below what moments stand out for you. It's all great. It's all good conversation. We covered a lot of history in today's video, and WoW, let's just be honest, it's a beautifully complicated game. But learning a new class means
that is
knowing
even
your goals,
more complicated.
your sustain damage, your...
Yeah, check out Skill Cap.
Watching.
Beautiful. That was a great video. Let's give it a like. I'll share it to you guys if you guys want to check it out. I'll link it here and I'll link it here. Make sure you guys follow Skill Cap. Check out Skill Cap. Give Skill Cap a like. And yeah. When I started the video, I was like, okay, let's see if he puts orange marmalade in there. Dude, I actually thought he was going to put the Zaryu 1v2 in as one of the most iconic moments.